Hello and welcome to Republican Roundtable. I'm your host, Jen Zielinski, and thank you for joining us. We are in the middle of a great 2024 election season, and with us tonight is candidate for Bloomington, Bob Gust. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. And you are running for Minnesota House of Representatives, correct?
Yes, seat 50B.
50B.
Which is basically west of Penn.
Okay.
It's a little more nuanced than that, but it's basically Bloomington west of Penn.
Great. And tell us about yourself. Let our viewers know how you got to be a politician.
So it's probably the last thing I ever thought of doing.
Yep.
I am a lifelong Minnesotan. I've been practicing law for 40 years. And I'm also a lifelong Republican. And things in this state just seem to be going in a direction that's really kind of shocking to me. Mm-hmm. And in 2023, a group of my friends got together and we started talking about we've got to try harder, we've got to do something different. Well, a year went by and I don't know that we had really done enough different. And then it came time to file, and I decided it was time to get involved.
So that even brought you to running for House, something you never saw in your life.
Yeah, I guess at different times I had thought, just because the direction seemed bad, that I thought, well, maybe I need to get out there. But it was never an ambition of mine to be in politics. It's really, my motivation is just, I think we're going completely in the wrong direction. And so, a lot of people, when they're going to run for office, they have a number of things they say they want to do. I want to do this, I want to do this. My motivation initially is I want to stop everything that's been going on. We've been getting crazier and crazier in terms of the stuff that's happening, particularly since the Democrats took control of sort of all three parts of the legislative process, including the governor as the person who has to sign the stuff.
And we're even about to lose the Supreme Court, it looks like, in Minnesota, or I think we've lost that.
I believe everyone on the Supreme Court now has been appointed by a Democrat. Now that, I know some of them as a lawyer. One of them I even had a case against years ago. Mm-hmm. I don't know that they are as ideological on the Supreme Court. I don't know that they're not, but I'm less concerned about the Supreme Court than what the legislature has done.
Fair. And, with Governor Walz, whatever will happen with him, going into this 2024 election, we see a runaway Democrat crew just going crazy in the House and Senate. What are some of your main issues that you're trying to work for or trying to stop from them?
Well, the thing that most people say to me that bothers them the most is based on taxes and inflation. Mm-hmm. And those are certainly very high priorities, and I think that has to be one of the highest priorities, because you have two problems. First, we have a huge surplus, 17 billion. Sometimes I hear even a higher number, but plenty high. And so to me, that's a signal that our taxes are too high. Mm-hmm. And so that's a good time to cut taxes. And so rather than doing that, they decided to increase the spending level so that there wouldn't be that surplus in the future. And even then they raised taxes beyond that. Now I know they gave some of the money back, although they didn't really give it back to who paid it. It was more of a wealth redistribution.
Yeah.
And the other thing about that is we had a surplus because the economy was good. Mm-hmm. Now we might not have such a good economy, but we've already raised taxes. The other states have seen this before, where all of a sudden they think things are going well, so they just up and up, and then they have to raise taxes some more. But along with that now, because of the inflation that we're experiencing, which is largely driven by demonizing traditional sources of energy, as far as I can tell. I mean, when gas was $1.50, it cost a lot less to transport goods wherever you needed to transport. Now it's $3.50, and as a result, everything. I mean, I can't get over just going out to lunch with my former law partner. We go to lunch once a week, and it used to be $25. It's $40 or $50 just for a nice lunch.
Even for breakfast, my boyfriend and I will go out for breakfast once in a while, and it's ridiculous what we'll spend. That's a used to be a dinner is what we spend for breakfast now.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
And so you sort of have that double whammy.
Yes.
Your dollars aren't worth as much, but they're taking more and more of them away.
Yes.
So I think we're always probably going to be a fairly high taxed state. I would like to see that change, and part of the reason I like to see it change is I think we actually would get more tax revenue in some cases by lowering the rate or lowering the things we tax. Case in point, a lot of people moving out of state or changing their residence. Now those people are probably willing to go ahead and pay their income tax or their capital gains tax or something like that. But people are really mad about having to pay taxes on Social Security. And people, I mean, there's only, I think, a handful of states, less than 10, that still have an estate tax, okay? Or have an estate tax that isn't indexed the way the federal tax is. So by trying to get those extra taxes, you're driving people away, and now you're not even getting their income taxes anymore or their capital gains taxes. And increasingly I know people who are about my age retiring, and that's what they're doing. They're still maintaining a residence here.
But they're choosing to go elsewhere.
But they're choosing to go elsewhere. And the reality is that I think we'd actually get more tax revenue if we got rid of taxes that people think are unfair. Now, all of that being said, we've talked a lot about taxes and whatnot. But there's a whole other social issues. I don't know if that's the exact right term for it, but all the things that were done that I think were just to try to get Democrats reelected, like voting rights for felons, okay?
We saw
Now,
that.
you can make an argument for voting rights for felons if you really want to, sort of get people to back into society and kind of feel as though they're part of it. You can make a case for it. But why was that their first priority? It was their first priority because they think that they're going to get those votes. Similarly, driver's licenses for non-citizens, okay? I know people who have employees who they think are probably not citizens, or maybe they know it or whatever. And they have said, well, it would be nice if they had driver's licenses because then they can get insurance and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, you can sort of make an argument for it. But why was that a high priority? It was a high priority because when you go to vote, you don't have to prove your citizenship. You only have to prove your residence. Now you've got a card.
And it scans right in.
And it scans right in. It shows your residence. Now, they could have issued a card that said this is a driver's license, but it's a non-citizen's driver's license. And they could have accomplished what they claimed they were trying to accomplish. But the reality is I think that's not what they're trying to accomplish. They were trying to, and curiously, I'm not sure that that actually is going to be their voting bloc.
I'm with you on that.
I from what I've heard from a lot of people who know people who are here illegally or came in originally illegally, they're kind of against that much immigration as well because there's a limited number of jobs and there's a limited number of social services. So as you bring in more people, it depresses wages and to strain on social services. And I don't, just as an aside, I don't really want more people from anywhere. I'd have to drive on 494 every day. we have too many people already. I don't even need people from Iowa moving here because I think we have enough people. But we certainly, I think we need to focus on taking care of people who are already here.
You're right. People who have actually been in Minnesota for a long time, and have worked here should have that priority over somebody just coming here for the first time.
And everyone thinks like the Republicans are, cold-hearted, and I think it's the exact opposite. I think Republicans want everybody to succeed, and they believe that everyone can succeed.
Yes.
As opposed to believing, they can't succeed without this. I mean, the Democrats believe that some people can't even get an ID in order to go vote. I mean, that's sort of
very belittling, demeaning to everything.
It's stunning to me. I mean, I don't know how someone can be in that party when they're being so disrespected. The suggestion that they can't get a driver's license. Now that might have been true, 40, 50 years ago, or you had more rural communities, or you had you had people who were you had more illiteracy years ago, but we don't have that anymore.
No, no. Speaking of, we want everyone to succeed. Education in Minnesota, are we succeeding in that right now, or is that also an issue?
That that seems to be the forever issue. Education. I mean, I always did pretty well scholastically, so I wouldn't say I loved school, although the further I went along, the more I did. I was very engaged in law school. I thought it was very, well, at least for the first couple of years, very interesting. But the education, I think part of it is we just keep throwing money at it, but we're not really throwing money at more teachers or better teacher ratios.
Okay.
We're throwing it at stuff that I don't know what it's part of the bureaucracy.
Okay.
The other issue that I have is I know that No Child Left Behind was a George W. Bush program, and it's a nice moniker, it's a nice name. But the problem is if you accomplish that, No Child Left Behind, by holding up, the children who might be excelling. And so the real focus in education, I think, should be maximizing every child's potential. And again, I'm not, No Child Left Behind. It's like I say, it sounds fine, but you do need to focus on that. I was talking to someone recently who actually was a former commissioner of education here, Alice Segrin, and she was saying how she had 2 children, one of whom had development issues and one of whom was very smart. And she was very concerned about both of them, and that's kind of how she became commissioner of education, why she was interested in it. And part of it was because her child, who was wanted to excel, wanted to take the books home and read them, and the teacher wouldn't let her because it's like they said she'll get too far ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was interesting because I've always had that thought that it's like what we need to do is help every child reach their potential, and and part of that I think is less centralization of what we're teaching.
Okay.
So, a school board up in Biwabic, if they want to have, gun training courses, that's, they should be allowed to do that. They shouldn't be getting a mandate from St. Paul as to what they can and they can't do. Because I think as you push those decisions lower, I think you just get better decisions. The people who are it concerns are making the decision.
And it sounds like you want to take power away from St. Paul, being even in the center of it, and give it back to everybody.
Yeah, that's the odd thing about running for office, because I don't, and I want to give power back to where it belongs, in part because when I'm a citizen, I want to have that power. And that it just seems as though we're becoming more and more centralized on everything, and right down to, even coming out of the federal government, the directives coming down, the Biden directives regarding biological men in women's locker rooms.
Yep, we've seen
example.
that. Yep.
Now that, I just don't know who really thinks that's a good idea. I just find it impossible to believe that anyone really thinks that that's a good idea.
Not for young kids. Bob, how can viewers contact you if they do want to learn more?
So my website is just bobgust.com, BOBGUST. Email at either info@bobgust.com or bob@bobgust.com, and the phone number is 612-324-6767. It is not always manned, so it's not as though I have a service there, but you could certainly leave a message if they wanted to.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we're making our interview a little bit short today, but I want people to get a hold of you because you have some great ideas, like just already talking about it. Any last thoughts for the viewers?
Not really. I just, I always took a lot of pride in the fact that my clients trusted me to represent their interests, not just to represent their interests, but to represent their interests above all else, including my own. And that's what I want to do for the people of 50B. I want to represent all of their interests. I know even if you win, they didn't all vote for you.
Yep.
But I believe that I have, my priorities are a lot closer to the people there than with the people in St. Paul. And so that's why I think I'm the person for the job.
That sounds great. And we don't want somebody who aligns with St. Paul. We want somebody who aligns with Bloomington.
Well, I think that's true. And interestingly, my opponent is literally my neighbor, lives across the street and up 6 or 7 houses. And he's not a bad guy. I don't intend ever saying bad about him, but I think he's gotten on board with every bad idea. As far as I can tell, he has been sort of lockstep, which is curious because in the House of Representatives, there was enough of a majority. He could have said, well, you know what, I don't think the people in my district that this is something that they're really for, and it would have still passed. So if he was, politically, but he didn't. He's on board, and now I'm hoping to take that spot.
Keep him at home.
Yeah, well, he should be ready to retire. I think he's about 70, so.
Perfect.
I'm trying to do his wife a favor.
Exactly. I don't know, that might not be a favor for her, but again, 50B, that is what part of Bloomington?
It's west, everything west of Penn, and it jogs a little bit when you get down by the river, and there are a couple of precincts right along 494 that are actually in Edina, and the representative there that's running is Owen Michelson.
Perfect. Bob, thank you for being on our show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Republican Roundtable. Remember, it's time to get out to register to vote if you have not registered yet. And also, early voting does start in September, so by the time you're watching this, it might be time for you to vote. Thank you for joining us.